Hello, this is an analysis of the piece Dance to the Death. This piece was written for the riff composition assignment, and the idea being we have a piece of music that's kind of like a soundtrack to a video game or a film or a piece of media, but this composition has been made from very few melodic and harmonic ideas. We have simple riff-based repetitive melodic and harmonic ideas, but they've been arranged, they've been layered, they've been repeated, and through doing all of that, we get a satisfying piece of music. So this is a challenge for you. Can you create a meaningful, satisfying piece of music from very few core melodic or harmonic ideas? So let's get started. Our first idea in this piece occurs in the synth bass, and here is what it sounds like. Cool, there's our first idea. And if we jump across to the score, before we look at that riff, let's have a look at what it's made from. It's made from the Aeolian mode. These are the chords, the scale tone chords of that E minor world. And of course, this is often called the natural minor. So this is an E natural minor. So effectively, we are in the key of E minor, but we're not going to see an exploration of this world of E minor that we would traditionally see in a piece in E minor. Instead, we are going to have a lot of repetition of this riff. So this is going to repeat a lot. And by repeating this riff, which is made from E Aeolian or E natural minor, we're going to feel like we are in E minor without venturing through all of the harmonic terrain that we would normally expect to see in a piece in E minor. Now, this riff has been written the way that guitars often write riffs, or guitarists often write riffs. And what happens when a guitarist writes a riff often is that they will return to a low note. In this case, the E, the open E at the bottom of the guitar, the thick E string. Now, that effectively means that this guitarist is playing with no fingers, and instead they're putting a finger down here, letting go for these low notes. And we're playing these high notes, returning to the open E. High note, E, high note, E. So this low E functions as what we will call a pedal note, a low pedal that we return to over and over again. After this riff repeats, we get this little tag at the end with this little bend, this little pitch bend at the end. And I've said here that the tag, it just makes the riff slightly less repetitive to break it up with this little tag. And the bent B note really adds drama as the riff repeats around and around. So hopefully you'll hear that when we play the riff again. You'll hear that as the riff repeats, the bend is kind of exciting. I'll jump halfway through. So after that bend, it's kind of cool when the riff returns. It's kind of exciting. We've had this dramatic bend, it creates tension, and then we're released back into the riff. The second idea that happens is that we do have a little bit of harmony. It happens in the harp. This is what it sounds like. Let's check that out on the score. I'm just going to maximize. Over here, we have effectively our harmony. I won't call this idea 2, we'll call the melody idea 2, but this is the harmony. So the harmony is played by the harp, and this is not really a chord progression. So even though we've got harmony, we are hearing harmony, we're not going to call this a chord progression in the way that we're not really venturing through the key of E minor. We haven't got tonic and dominant relationships. We're not moving through the median and the subdominant and all these kind of exciting places that we like to venture within a key when we write a song. What we're doing here, I'm going to call a modal exploration of E Aeolian or E natural minor. We've just got effectively 2 different chords, the E minor and the D chord with an E in the bass, and it just allows us to explore the mode a little bit through harmony, but I wouldn't really call it a chord progression. We're not moving through the key in any sort of narrative sort of way. These chords, they sit above idea 1, which is our riff, our first riff. They set above that. And what I want you to notice is that idea 1 doesn't change with the chords. Idea 1 kind of ignores that the chords are happening. It's just doing its own thing. It doesn't matter that we've got harmony that at times may slightly clash with the riff, because they are complementary ideas, because they're made from the same mode. And this is kind of key to this whole idea. If we are making a riff-based song, if we make sure that everything that we make is made from the same mode, there's a very good chance they'll fit together, even if it's not exactly like a chord progression and we're playing a melody that's derived from the chord or anything like that. So we've got some harmony, we've got a riff, and you'll hear that they blend quite nicely together. So I'll put those two together at the same time. We've got our harmony and our idea 1. And they blend quite nicely. Now over the top of that, we've put some basic kind of percussion. We've just got some quavers, some eighth notes there, and it's all working fine. So at the moment, we've got idea 1, we've got our harmony sort of underpinning it, and we've got a bit of a groove happening in the percussion, and then we're ready for idea 2. Idea 2 is the melody. So this melody is, again, it's made from the E Aeolian mode. There's repetition, there's exploration of range, there's a mixture of rhythms, and these elements combine together to make pretty much an effective melody. Let's have a listen to it quickly, and then we'll jump back to the score. Here is the melody. Now it's in octaves in the strings. Cool. I think that melody is pretty effective, if I may say so myself. And the reason it's effective is because there is a mixture of these elements. There's repetition, there's exploration of range. So we've got a full octave here. We jump up an octave, we work our way back down. We jump up an octave, and then we work our way up. There's some repetition in rhythms. Ba da 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 da. So there's repeated elements in the rhythm. This opening phrase is repeated. And between all of that, it builds to make an effective melody. Now let's hear how it interacts with our idea 1. So idea 1 and idea 2 are now happening simultaneously. They work perfectly well together, despite the fact that we haven't really got any chords happening. We haven't got there's no chord progression to speak of. The melody was not made using chord notes or any consideration for chord notes. They were just two riff-based ideas in the key of E minor using the E natural minor or the Aeolian mode. Okay. Now, as far as this opening section goes, the melody will return, this time in 3 octaves, which is, getting a bit over the top. It sounds epic. All it is literally 3 octaves stacked, right? Over the top of the idea. What I've done, which is kind of fun, is I've doubled the idea 1 in a distorted synth. So when you put it together with the other idea, there's a kind of an exciting build. That feels kind of intense, here. Now, that distorted synth is about to disappear, but the octave strings come back. So the idea has kind of built through just simply layering, adding an extra octave. Literally, you can see I've copy pasted. It's called the same thing across both instruments. I've just copy pasted it from one instrument to the other and doubled, and it's all pretty exciting. Let's jump to the next section. The next section has a couple of different ideas. So in this next section, we have got idea 3. It looks complicated, but it's a deceptively simple concept. What we've got is an E minor 7 chord, and it's been expressed in broken form. In this case, these notes have been paired together, and these notes have been paired together. When you do that, you get this sound. In a second, I will play it. On the surface, that sounds like a sophisticated, interesting idea. It's not really. It's an E minor 7 chord. We are in the key of E minor. That's basically the most straightforward choice you could possibly make. It's just that chord has been expressed in broken form. What's exciting about when you hear this in the song is that it is an interesting texture. It's the harp. It's rhythmic because it's busy. It's on 8th notes. And the chord has been broken up into these two separate sort of harmonies that tend to be 4ths or 5ths apart, which are very sort of pure intervals. I'll just rewind it a little bit and you'll hear that kind of excitement or that interest when it comes along. Here comes the harp. That's really the only thing that's happening in this section. We've added a pretty generic, funky, slightly rap, hip-hop-esque beat. Put the harp into it. Bit of ride cymbal. It does sound cool. It's just E minor. All you're hearing is E minor. We are in the key of E minor. Very, very basic choice. There's nothing brilliant about those choices. We then just add a little bit of harmony. Now I decided in this section we're going to get a little bit computer cyber sounding. Okay, so rather than these organic textures that we were hearing in this first part, although the monster bass sound is not organic, I want to get that kind of electronic sound to blend the organic and the electronic textures together. So we get some chords here. Now we are using the exact same harmonic ideas as before. We've got an E minor, a D major, an E minor in a different inversion, back to D major. So this is the same harmony that the harp did at the beginning of the song, but now it's in a kind of cool 80s-esque kind of pad. So when you put that together, we're going to hear our harp broken chord, we're going to hear our hip-hop grooves, and we're going to hear our synth pad playing E minor and D. Notice that the slow drift 80s synthesizer is playing a D chord. The harp has continued to play E minor at the same time. They don't even acknowledge each other's existence. It sounds fine. There's no clash, even though we're hearing D against E. It's fine. These same chords are now applied to a gospel vocal patch. This is kind of fun. Just adding those human voices in there is a kind of a nice touch. It's all the same stuff though. E minor, D, E minor, ignore the cluster chord, back to D. Alright, and then now we hit our transition period because we're about to go back to idea 1 and idea 2, our bass and our melody. But we have a little pitch bend section. Now here I've pitch bent the human voices, which makes them very distorted. So this makes it sort of sound suspenseful. Have a listen to this. So it's kind of chilling, thrilling, exciting, something's going to happen sort of moment. That's just using the pitch bender on my MIDI keyboard. We return to idea 1. And then idea 2, our melody comes back. That just repeats until the end of the song. We end with this. Just a little concluding rhythm. Bum, 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 bum. And then I thought, just as a little coda, a little tag at the end, we would try something a little bit fun. So we've had, just to recap the song quickly, we've got idea 1 and idea 2 here. We have idea 3, our broken chords. We return to idea 1 and 2 here. So we've essentially got an A, B, A form. And I thought, what if we change the mood a little bit? Now, what you're going to hear at the end, as the piece ends, after the piece ends, there is a short coda where the harp will play an E minor 7, which is our home chord, but then an A9, and it's in a rubato sort of free tempo style. The introduction of C sharp in the A9 chord means that we have shifted from Aeolian into Dorian. So in our regular E natural minor or Aeolian, we have a C natural. When we bring in this A chord, we have a C sharp. Okay? I don't know why this is done what it's supposed to. This was supposed to be the Dorian mode, so ignore that. But these are our two chords. Now, Dorian is a slightly lighter and more hopeful mode than Aeolian. If we think about the order of modes from lightest to darkest, we start light with Lydian and Ionian. They're very major oriented. Mixolydian is major oriented. Our first step into minor tonality is the Dorian. So it's only one step towards that darkness. We haven't gone to full natural minor yet, and certainly not Phrygian and Locrian. So this is one step in a lighter direction. And what I hope you'll hear as the coda concludes is that there is a tiny bit of hope at the end. Now I've repeated the electronic drum beats, which is it's always a good idea to just repeat a reference from earlier in the song. But what I have done is I've had a little play with these two chords in the Aeolian mode. I'm just going to rewind to about here. Not sure if you can hear the hope that comes from that C sharp. And that's sort of a note to end on. So perhaps our hero in this story has defeated the enemy, or they've defeated the enemy, but there's more to go. We haven't quite reached a major tonality yet. But now we call this modal interchange, when a piece changes the mode that it is based upon. Instead of Aeolian, we switch to Dorian just at the end, and a tiny glimmer of hope emerges. So that is the analysis of this piece. What I hope you take away from it is that there are not a ton of ideas. There's idea 1, a repeated riff. It repeats 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. We have our melody. It repeats 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. This harp repeats a bunch of times. The drums were very basic. But overall, it's still quite a satisfying piece of music. It achieves its goal of being atmospheric and cinematic and capturing a mood. If this was set to a video game, I don't think people would really notice that it was quite light on ideas. So that is going to be our composition challenge. How good and how satisfying of a piece can you write from very few melodic and harmonic ideas? Hopefully this helps, and I hope you enjoy trying to write these sorts of compositions. Thank you.